Thank you, Dean Cravella. Thank you, computer science faculty. Thank you, graduating students and parents of graduating students. I'm one of you. You should know this right off the bat about me. My mother did her PhD at BU. Both my parents worked at BU. My son will be starting a master's degree at the BU School of Education this July. His mother and grandpa both went to BU. My Boston University cup of gratitude runneth over. Thank you. I come to you this morning from the land of unicorns, chatbots, dog fooding, self-driving Google cars, gray t-shirts, Pied Piper, and black turtlenecks. I come to you from Silicon Valley. We have a lot to be thankful for in the Bay Area, but we missed one thing. I made sure to pick up that one thing on my way here, a large, regular cup of Dunkin' Donuts coffee. So picture me 30 years ago, sitting where you are right now. The idea of me standing on this stage speaking to a graduating class was the farthest thing from my mind. It wasn't the plan. A career, a girlfriend, a car, an actual apartment of my own, and a path to a green card was all I had in the plan. So how did I make the journey from those seats to this stage? Did I get an MBA? Was I a co-founder of WhatsApp? Did I invent Bitcoin? No. I actually mostly did what you've spent the last 4 years learning to do. I wrote a lot of code, from assembly language to Prolog and Lisp and all points in between. I built and shipped products, started a few companies, and leveraged this great liberal arts education to constantly think about what's going on in the world and how I could help. So you say, okay, writing code, reading history, thinking about helping humankind, all useful activities to be sure, but insufficient, you say, to explain the arc of my journey. What's the one thing? Is there one thing that I can point to, that I can pass on to you as advice on your career journey? Here it is. Here's the punchline. Almost anything that's worth doing is much bigger than yourself. It's been said that it takes a village to properly raise a child. I'm sure your parents agree. I'm here to also tell you to constantly seek your village, to craft your village, to constantly teach and motivate and learn from your team, your community, just as painstakingly as you focus on your individual accomplishments. Let's get tangible. Let me be specific. You want to do something huge? Let me tell you the rules of the game with some personal examples. Rule number 1, if you thought of it, you own it, no matter how lonely and painful it gets. This story begins here. I was a student at BU. I was also a summer intern at Honeywell. They made computers back then. I was working in a group that built email and word processing and general office software. My first summer was fun and uneventful. I came back for the second summer before senior year, and I had this simple thought for my summer project. People had to log in to email different from the word processor and differently from all the other programs. What if people could just log in once and get to everything? My boss was indifferent to the idea. User experience wasn't his thing. I spent a few weeks stumbling around because no one knew how to make this happen. I had chosen a really hard problem, and I was entirely on my own. Then Honeywell, the company, bid on a giant government contract, and there it was, in fine print in the requirements document. Page 1, requirement 1. Single login, single sign-on to all programs. The next thing I know, my boss and a bunch of people in suits from corporate were crowded into my tiny shared cubicle, asking me how my project was going. I described my difficulties and said that for it to have to work, everyone throughout the company was going to have to cooperate. They agreed. My summer and fall were ruined from that point on. I worked 80 hours a week in the summer, often in the windowless basement offices and server rooms, since it had become a critical secret project. When school started in the fall, I'd gotten into the BA/MA program in CS, thank you again, BU. I had to balance a super aggressive course load with the demands of this crazy project, which sometimes included weekend travel to other Honeywell offices in Arizona and in France. A red-eye flight is tough, but what's even tougher is an overnight flight with everyone smoking on board when you're trying to do homework. I still have no idea how we pulled it off, but we did. The lesson here was not the idea. Of course, everyone wants to log in just once. It was that I had been a catalyst, and this large company took a bet on me and made me the owner of something very important that touched a lot of people within the organization. I realized fairly quickly that how I carried myself, whether I remained optimistic, whether I dragged myself to the next marathon day after that overnight flight, or whether I took the time to explain the whole thing one more time to a new stakeholder, all of these softer and wider skills, if you will, mattered much more than the specifics of the code. Rule number 2, it doesn't have to be your idea, but you may be the only one who can make it happen. Fast forward to almost a decade later. I was working at Adobe in Silicon Valley. We had just launched Acrobat, or PDF, and while people thought it was nice, it didn't look like it was going to revolutionize anything. A little company called Netscape had just launched an alpha of their web browser, and all of us engineers and marketing folks were discussing the World Wide Web at a Friday beer bash. Someone on the marketing team came over and said, what if we could make this PDF file show up in the browser? You know, the pages, the fonts, search, images, the whole thing. Simple idea again, not my idea. I returned to my cube and thought of a way to hack it. It was Microsoft Windows, after all, so it didn't take much effort to redirect the Acrobat reader to not draw the file in its own window, but to point it at the Netscape window. Yes, I had created a virus, and the thing truly spread like a virus. The hack became browser plugins. We had to change the HTTP protocol to accommodate progressive download of big files, and we changed the way Acrobat and a lot of software was distributed from old-fashioned CD-ROM to downloads from the web. This time, the concept floated up from a beer bash conversation and turned it into an industry-wide village. Adobe, Netscape, Microsoft, and the World Wide Web Consortium all cooperated to ship something significant in a span of 3 to 6 months. My job was to mainly write a lot of code, client code, protocol code, browser code, but also to rally engineers from diverse organizations, not just to solve my specific problem, but also to generalize for many other use cases, such as video streaming and the Flash player. Rule number 3, with great power comes great responsibility. My next tale, like the last one, begins with a plea from a young marketing person. It was September 2005, and Hurricane Katrina had just struck New Orleans. I walked into work one morning, and a member of our marketing team stood near the office, near the coffee machine, looking very upset and saying, there's got to be something we can do. She'd been watching TV footage of people stranded in the New Orleans Superdome and on the tops of their roofs for days. We were a mobile messaging company. People downloaded ringtones and voted via SMS on TV shows like American Idol and Deal or No Deal through platforms like ours. We were a small startup with large influence, huge influence. Something like 40% of AT&T's data revenue flowed through our pipes. So when she said, what if people could donate money via a text message? I realized that the only right and proper answer was, let's try. We got on the phone with a couple folks at AT&T and Verizon and were amazed as to how quickly things moved. We lit up donate via SMS throughout North America by that night. I will never forget the group conference call with employees from all the wireless carriers in the US and Canada just focused on testing that it all worked. This was an idea born out of a genuine desire to do something in a crisis, and it quickly turned into a multi-country effort. My team's task was to use our industry influence and contacts to get people talking and moving. The SMS-based charity program is alive and working to this day. Millions of dollars have been donated by Americans and Canadians by sending a text message for the past 11 years, thanks to an inspired plea from someone not much older than you. Rule number 4, root for your competitors. That's right, you heard me right, root for your competitors. The mobile messaging company was acquired in 2006, and I was quickly onto my next startup in Waltham, trying to bring advertising to mobile devices. This was pre-iPhone. The phone screens were small, and the browsers on the phones were buggy, underpowered, and did not use normal web formats like HTML. We were among a dozen little companies chasing after a small pool of advertising dollars. But we were a good group in that we did not badmouth each other because we realized that it was silly to cut each other down in those early days. Then came the iPhone in 2007. We were suddenly solving yesterday's problem. This kind of thing can happen in an instant in startup land. Our old technology, which was about overcoming the deficiencies of these underpowered phones, wasn't that interesting when people wanted to take advantage of the capabilities of the beautiful iPhone. Our struggles continued and worsened with the great market crash and recession of 2008. Our company was running out of funding while every form of investment was drying up before our eyes. For those of you who have seen the movie The Big Short, and I highly recommend it, our own Lehman Brothers story is that they were about to invest in us in late August 2008 and then completely folded as a company 3 weeks later. It was hard to make plan B when banks and venture funds were failing. Apple to the rescue. They launched the App Store, and quickly there were hundreds and then thousands of free apps. We asked ourselves, what if we became Robin Hood of the industry? What if we could take advertising money from the rich brands and paid out to the mom and pop app developers? We cobbled together one of the early iPhone ad SDK libraries and had several thousand app clients up and running in weeks. But if we could do this in weeks, what prevented others from copying us? We had to get big fast or talk someone big into acquiring us. As I said before, the one thing we'd been good at throughout was working with ad agencies and even our competitors in making sure the overall mobile ad industry, our village, was growing. We'd do things like bring in a competitor if we didn't think we could meet a particular client need. We'd had merger and acquisition talks with some of our bigger competitors and mutually declined, but made sure that we built genuine relationships with our peers from those other companies. People notice these things. Our main competitor was in secret talks with Apple to be acquired throughout 2009. Our competitor found a bigger, better suitor in Google. Their Apple talks ended, and unbeknownst to us, our competitor actually endorsed us on their way out. Apple called, intrigued by this unsolicited praise, and we were quickly front and center. One meeting in Cupertino with the iOS team, and the next a marathon session with Steve Jobs and other senior executives that culminated in Apple acquiring us, and many of us moving to Silicon Valley. We were a new type of product in Apple, so we had the unbelievable privilege and the equally unbelievable stress of working directly for Steve. Our technology wasn't extraordinary. Our team wasn't a bunch of Valley whiz kids, our competitor was, but what we had and what Apple valued was a good old word-of-mouth reputation for being good people, especially from our competition. Our contribution to this good vibe was to do unto others, so to speak, from the time we were tiny, We'd rather share the scraps than fight over them. Rule number 5, you've got to know when to hold them, you got to know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. I have focused on the positive in my stories until now. Is there a counter lesson? Sure there is. Sometimes an idea, no matter how good, will not work because it just does not fit within the culture of the larger village. Here's an example. In fact, it's the very same Robin Hood, take from the rich and pay to the poor idea that Apple acquired that ultimately did not work. So good ads are well-targeted ads. They show up in front of the right person at the right place at the right time. Good targeting needs great data, usually data about your prior behavior and preferences. The music you listen to, the movies you watch, and the types of apps you use are great ways of knowing your tastes and preferences. Oh yeah, the idea of using iTunes and App Store data in this way sure stirred up a lot of debate within Apple. I was the point person for getting this targeting right, and so I was in the direct line of fire from Apple's senior leaders. I kept at it because it made for a better product for our customers. The rich brands, happier rich brands, more money for poor app developers. However, the need for accurate personal data flew in the face of Apple's core belief in protecting user privacy. It's a great company. I was allowed to make my case with as much passion and data as I could muster, but ultimately my view did not prevail, and I understand why. Apple is about to shut down the entire ad service iAd in a month or so. I moved on to other great projects within Apple and ultimately left to return to being an entrepreneur again. My new mission, my new village, is to help people eat healthy, real food, especially when they're traveling and need to eat out. Our app is called Tasteful. Think of it as a Yelp for the healthy eater. Please download it and write an App Store review or a Google Play review. So no more rules. Let's wrap this up. You've been given a great gift. You've been given many great gifts. You're a computer science graduate in what history books will probably call the age of computation. You're solid on algorithms. Your code will scale. You're not intimidated by new languages or technology shifts. In fact, you welcome them. Just like me, you are required to broaden your scope beyond CS and take classes in the humanities and maybe film, art, and music, all within this great university. You truly stand at the intersection of technology and the liberal arts. It's all there in you. You are uniquely and totally equipped to shepherd ideas both big and small, creative and technical, to bring in people from all walks of life into the fold, to teach and to listen and to learn. You know your superpower, and you know where you need a helping hand. You, any one of you, will be on this stage talking back to you 30 years from now. Your story will have the same arc as mine, and it's because we together are part of an idea much bigger than ourselves, Boston University. Thank you. One more thing. I'm sure many of you have been interviewing hard throughout the country for jobs. I thought it would be fun for all of us to see the interview process in action at a typical Silicon Valley startup. Can we please go to the YouTube?
Thanks for coming in and sitting down with us. We're really excited to meet a few good engineers to join the Pied Piper team.
So why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
I don't work before noon or after 2 p.m. And I need to bring my dog to work. Are you dog friendly?
Oh yeah, you can bring your dog to work.
That's not what I asked. Are you dog friendly?
Nice pool. Can my dog go in?
Yeah, we're very dog friendly.
Is there a lifeguard? Because my dog can't swim.
Now, it says here on your resume that from 2010 to 2011, you crushed it?
But that's actually an old resume. It should also read that I crushed it from 2013 to present.
So are we to understand that you did not crush it in 2012?
There was a medical situation preventing me from crushing it to my usual standards, so I had to take some time off until I was able to crush it at 100%, at which point I resumed crushing it full time.
So, it says here that you're proficient in C++, code assembly for multiple processor architectures, and that you are a cyborg?
That is correct. Short for cybernetic organism. I came into this world of filth and pain with a congenital heart condition, requiring the installation of a pacemaker, upon which I am mortally dependent.
Wow, he's technically a cyborg.
Yeah, it makes the resume accurate.
Look, we all know that I can make a shitload more money working for some multicolored happy town in a hermetically sealed box. But permission to be honest.
Permission granted.
Granted.
I like that you guys are so weird.
Yes, we are the weird ones.
All right, you guys, here's to being the weird ones. Bye.